Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. We have some breaking news. An amazing bantamweight matchup was just added to UFC 280. Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, UFC 280, Abu Dhabi, October 22nd. And what an amazing matchup this is. And I wanted to do a video giving my quick reaction and early prediction to this fight. And guys, if you enjoy these types of videos, I do them all the time. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. And if you guys could do me a favor and like the video, I would greatly appreciate it. So first off, UFC 280 is just stacked from top to bottom at this point. I mean, the fights that we have announced, the notable fights that we have announced so far are worth the price of the pay-per-view. The main event, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev. The co-main event, TJ Dillashaw versus Aljamain Sterling for the bantamweight title. So 2 title fights already. Then you have Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady, which is a very intriguing welterweight matchup. And now you add Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley. This is very relevant to the bantamweight division. And I just cannot wait for this fight for so many reasons. First off, it's going to answer so many questions about Sean O'Malley's skill sets that a lot of people have had for a long time because we haven't really seen him tested. I'm going to talk about the Pedro Munoz fight in a second because I know somebody's going to say that in the comments. But we really haven't seen him tested. And now he's jumping into the deep end against a guy like Petr Yan. This is insane. This is going to be very interesting just because we're going to get to see where Sean O'Malley's skill set is. And on top of that, when you're fighting the #1 ranked guy in the division in Petr Yan, this fight has title implications, whether it be Petr Yan fighting for the title after beating Sean O'Malley or Sean O'Malley fighting for the title after beating Petr Yan. And then on top of that, you have the champion defending his belt on the same card. I'm telling you right now, I'm very confident the winner of Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley will be fighting for the bantamweight title maybe early next year. Either way, after TJ Dillashaw versus Aljamain Sterling, the winner of this fight will be fighting the winner of that fight for the bantamweight title. And shout out to Petr Yan for taking this fight. I know a lot of people are going to say that about Sean O'Malley. I'm going to say that in a second as well. But Petr Yan's kind of in not a great spot here because he's the #1 ranked guy in the world. A lot of people thought he beat Aljamain Sterling at UFC 273. It was a controversial split decision. And he could have kind of sat out or maybe, waited for an opportunity to jump in there for a championship. And he really didn't have to fight anyone, let alone fight a guy ranked 13 in the world. Not even in the top 10. And if he goes out there and beats Sean O'Malley, I think a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, he was supposed to beat Sean O'Malley, And if he goes out there and loses to Sean O'Malley, they're going to be like, oh, he lost to a guy that wasn't even ranked in the top 10, rather than giving Sean O'Malley his credit. If he beats Petr Yan, there's no denying him at that point. So shout out to Petr Yan for taking this fight. We live in a day and age where there's too many fighters crying, saying, I'm not fighting back in the rankings, or I'm only fighting for a title. The rankings cause more problems than they're worth. And shout out to Petr Yan for taking this fight against a dangerous ranked #13 Sean O'Malley. And this fight gives me deja vu to when Leon Edwards versus Khamzat Chimaev was announced, back in, I think it was 2020. Leon Edwards was ranked like #1 or #2 in the welterweight division. Khamzat Chimaev wasn't even ranked. This was before he even fought Li Jingliang. So this is a very similar situation to that fight. Obviously, that fight never happened. But still, I mean, you have the #1 ranked guy in the world fighting the #13 ranked guy in the world. It's very rare to ever see that. But I'm super excited because we need these questions answered about Sean O'Malley. And we thought we were going to get some of them when he fought Pedro Munoz at UFC 276, but we didn't really get it. We got an unsatisfying ending. And now we're going to get those answers. Because if he goes out there and beats Petr Yan, he proves that he belongs not only in the top 10, but the top 5, and he deserves to be contending for a belt. So shout out to Sean O'Malley too. I mean, taking the toughest test that he could possibly take. I mean, you look at Petr Yan's resume. I talked about Sean O'Malley's resume quite a bit. You look at his resume. He's fought Aljamain Sterling twice. He's fought Corey Sandhagen. He's fought Jose Aldo. He's fought some of the elite at 135, and I believe the 135-pound division is the best division in all of the UFC. Then you have Sean O'Malley, who I'm excluding UFC 276 against Pedro Munoz. We didn't really get to see the fight play out. There was the eye poke in the second round. Pedro Munoz couldn't continue. We don't know who would have won that fight. You can say, oh, I thought Sean O'Malley was going to win. I thought Pedro Munoz was going to win. At the end of the day, we don't really know. So we don't know what was going to happen in that fight. So I really just pretend that fight never happened because we don't know. And then outside of that, I mean, his best win is against Raulian Paiva, who I don't even know is in the UFC anymore. If he's not in the UFC, then Sean O'Malley has no wins over fighters who are currently on the UFC roster. I mean, Chris Montinho, what does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Thomas Almeida, far out of his prime at that point in time. The only decent fighter he's fought in the UFC, who's still currently in the UFC, is Marlon Vera, and we all know what happened in that fight. He got his legs brutally chopped, and then he was flash KO'd with brutal ground and pound elbows, and then stretchered out of the cage with no serious injuries. So, obviously it's been a while since that fight. It's been about 2 years since that fight, and Sean O'Malley has definitely leveled up. But now we're finally getting to see that test that we've wanted for so long, and it's against Petr Yan. I mean, this also kind of has the feel of Khamzat Chimaev versus Gilbert Burns, if Khamzat didn't fight Li Jingliang, because Li Jingliang was a nice step up in competition. Sean O'Malley really doesn't have that. He would have had it in the Pedro Munoz fight had he won that fight, but that fight didn't get to play out, so we really don't have that. So this fight is super compelling. UFC 280 is super stacked now, and as far as an early prediction for this fight, I have to go with Petr Yan. I do think there is a chance. Sean O'Malley, I've always said, his striking looks very good. He's very powerful. He's very long. He's rangy. He's very dynamic. But Petr Yan is so well-rounded. I think he's pound for pound top 3 in the world right now, and he's one of the best fighters I've ever seen. He's a guy that I saw on the come up, and I thought this guy is going to fight for a title, if not be a champion one day. And arguably, he could still be champion. He lost the controversial split decision to Aljamain Sterling, and he could have won that fight. A lot of people thought he won that fight. But even if you want to say he lost that fight, it was still very close and competitive. So we know Petr Yan is championship level quality. It's not like he's fallen off a cliff or anything. And O'Malley, we still don't know. We haven't seen him. I mean, he lost to Marlon Vera, and Marlon Vera has gotten much better since then. That isn't the Marlon Vera from nowadays, who's gotten much better. So that's a loss. That was 2 years ago. But he's looked pretty good in his most recent fights, but it hasn't been against the best competition. So I have to go with Petr Yan in this fight. He's just so defensively responsible. He has great leg kicks. I mean, if you're getting stretchered out of the cage against Marlon Chito Vera, there's a chance Sean O'Malley might have to be airlifted when he fights Petr Yan, because he has nasty leg kicks. But at the same time, we've seen Sean O'Malley has gotten better at checking kicks. He did, check a fair amount of kicks against Pedro Munoz in the first round. We know Pedro Munoz has nasty leg kicks as well. So this is going to be a very interesting fight, but I have to go with Petr Yan for multiple reasons. Even if O'Malley is able to outstrike Petr Yan, which is a big if, I'm not even sure that he can, I think Petr Yan can out-grapple him. Not only have we not seen O'Malley tested against an elite level fighter, we haven't really seen his grappling tested at all. So I think even if, the fight starts and let's say O'Malley starts lighting him up on the feet, I think Petr Yan will be able to take him down, control him on the ground, beat him up on the ground. I mean, we've seen in the first fight against Aljamain Sterling, who's considered the best grappler in the division, we've seen Petr Yan be able to ragdoll him to the ground. And I know it went differently in the second fight, and Aljamain Sterling had some moments, especially in that second and third round where he got his back and controlled him. But Petr Yan is a very good grappler. So I just don't see how Sean O'Malley gets it done, because even if he is the better striker, which is, again, is a massive if, I think he gets out-grappled by Petr Yan and ends up losing that way. But this is a massive fight, and I think a lot of people are going to be hyped for this fight. This may be the people's main event of the card, because for me, I don't want to see something like this all the time. But when you see a guy who a lot of people are very high on, and he hasn't really been tested, and you just get to see him thrown against one of the best in the division, I mean, how can you not be hyped for that fight? Again, Khamzat Chimaev, Gilbert Burns, similar situation there. I was super hyped for that fight. We're going to find out at UFC 280 whether or not Sean O'Malley is the real deal, win or lose. Because even if Sean O'Malley loses, but it's very competitive, we know that he belongs towards the top of the division. If he goes out there and, he wins, I mean, that would be absolutely insane. And he's going to be fighting for the bantamweight title. And one more thing I'll say before I end this video. I hope Sean O'Malley is getting paid by the UFC for this fight, because regardless of what you think of his skill set, regardless of how good you think he is, Sean O'Malley definitely draws eyeballs to the sport. And he's definitely going to be bringing in some pay-per-view buys. I don't know how many for UFC 280. And now, he's taking a big risk, because if he gets washed by Petr Yan and absolutely demolished, which can happen in any MMA fight to anybody of any skill set, then he's going to be written off. So this is a big, dangerous fight for Sean O'Malley that's going to have a massive reward if he's able to win. But if he does lose, a lot of people are going to be writing him off afterwards. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Who do you think is going to win? Is anybody picking Sean O'Malley? And also, as far as an early prediction, I know I already said Petr Yan would win. I think Petr Yan will finish him in the second or third round. I just think he's too good, too well-rounded. We know where the stamina is at. We don't know where the stamina is at for Sean O'Malley either. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.